Democrats say the debt ceiling bill that passed the House last week isn't going anywhere in the Democratically controlled Senate. And now they're holding a hearing on that bill tomorrow. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said the hearing will shed light on what he called an extreme bill, while Republican leader Mitch McConnell has called on President Biden to do one of two things: either accept the House Republican bill or negotiate something else with House Republicans. For what it's worth, Biden has invited all four congressional leaders to a meeting next week to discuss the debt ceiling issue, with only weeks to go before the country may default on its debt. For more on all of this, Scott MacFarlane and Nancy Cordes join us now. Scott is a CBS News congressional correspondent. Nancy is CBS News' chief White House correspondent. Scott, let me talk with you first. Lots of conversations among Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill today. Give us the latest.
If you listen closely, I mean real closely, you can hear the sounds of shovels because everybody is just digging in deeper on their own side of this divide. It's becoming increasingly clear by the day as this deadline approaches. Nobody has any idea what can pass the House and pass the Senate and get the president's signature. And if they have that idea, they're not articulating it. Be a clean debt ceiling increase, be it the Republican plan, which cuts spending, or something in between. We brought those questions to senators throughout the day. Take a listen to some of the responses. At this point, do you have even 50 votes for a clean debt ceiling increase in the Senate?
I don't know the answer to that. There should be 50 votes for a clean debt ceiling because this is, the American people don't want us to default. They understand that. They don't want their interest rates to go up, and this is just a self-inflicted wound.
We will support whatever the Speaker negotiates, but it's absolutely reckless, particularly when our economy is teetering, to take this unnecessary risk and cause this unnecessary lack of confidence in our economy and in the future.
And tomorrow, the Senate Budget Committee has a hearing, mainly with scholars and economists, to talk about, according to the Democrats, all the problems with the Republican House plan. We're getting closer to the deadline, Major and Nancy, but there's no indication of any bridge being built over any divide.
Nancy, I want to pick up on Scott's point there. This hearing tomorrow meant to underscore Democratic criticism of that House Republican plan. Criticism, I'm sure, was amplified today at the White House and will be in the future.
Right, and we got a very blunt warning from the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, just a couple of hours ago. He said, Major, that if the nation does default on its debt, if Congress allows the debt ceiling to go unraised, don't count on the Fed to come in and swoop in and save the day. He said the Fed just doesn't have the ability to do that. The Fed can raise interest rates to tackle inflation, but it is not going to be able to do anything about the economic havoc that could be wreaked if Congress and a White House negotiation goes nowhere, and if the Congress doesn't do its basic duty to raise the debt ceiling.
Scott, back to you. Is there a sense in the conversations you had on the Hill today that members feel that the clock is ticking? I know you mentioned them digging in on their positions, but the clock is really ticking. We're getting closer and closer. Are they talking in ways like, we better do something?
Nobody's giving any indication of productive bipartisan discussions or even the existence of bipartisan discussions. And time is even more finite than the calendar indicates. There's an X date, a deadline of June 1st, but there are only a handful of days in which Congress is actually, here to pass things, to have bills introduced and go through some type of process. And we've heard it for the first time today, a senator saying we may need to add days to the calendar, skip home district work periods, skip recesses or weekends, and get to this. Take a listen to Senator Ben Ray Lujan, Democrat from New Mexico.
All the concerns that were shared with me leading up to this, they're all happening right now. And with 7 legislative days in the Senate that are currently scheduled, something has to be done. And I'm certainly hopeful that we'll hear that third week when the Senate is supposed to be on recess, that goes away.
There's no way through this, Major, without some new political complexion, some coalition that forms. We have yet to see this Congress of Democrats and Republicans working together toward an end goal. It'd be a very novel thing in this Congress at this moment.
Nancy, I want to play for you some sound from today's White House briefing. Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, talking about whether or not the United States could ever or should ever be a defaulting nation. Let's listen.
We cannot be a deadbeat nation. We cannot. This is something that we have been able to do in the past, 78 times since 1960. 78 times since 1960. We have always paid our debt. This country has always paid our debt. So what's different now? What is different now? That's something for congressional Republicans to answer.
So, Nancy, the question, this meeting at the White House next week, is it the opening of negotiations or something different?
It is the opening of negotiations, Major, even though the White House is going to continue to insist that it isn't. They are trying to make the case right now that the president has always been happy to sit down and talk about the budget and sit down with to talk about spending cuts with the House Speaker, but that is a conversation that is separate from the need to raise the debt limit. Now, that's just semantics, because obviously President Biden would not be sitting down to have that conversation over spending cuts at this point in time if he didn't need to do something to reach a compromise with Republicans that would cause them to vote to raise that debt ceiling. So there's no question that these two things are linked, even if the White House continues to insist they are not. However, even though it is a positive sign that that these congressional leaders are now going to be sitting down with the president, they are still so far apart, as Scott pointed out. Republicans want to cut $100 billion from the budget. The White House wants to cut nowhere near that much, and they want to cut different things. And so the prospect of these two sides reaching some kind of compromise that will be acceptable to both of them and reaching that compromise in a matter of weeks, it's very difficult to see how they do that right now.
And Nancy, from the White House perspective, it's clear that Senate Republicans are basically saying negotiations have to flow through the House Republican Conference. So whatever deal that emerges or is cut or is agreed to by the president has to go through House Republicans. It doesn't seem like Senate Republicans are really involving themselves here. That raises two interesting questions. One, the House Republican Conference, more conservative than the Senate Republican Conference, and the president himself, less experienced negotiating with House Republicans than he is with his former Senate colleagues.
Exactly. President Biden would love to be able to have this negotiation with the Senate's Republican leader, Mitch McConnell. They have known each other. They have cut many deals over the past few decades. But while Leader McConnell will be at this meeting next week, he's making it very clear that he's taking a back seat to the House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, for a couple of reasons. First of all, House Republicans are going to be very suspicious of any deal that is not cut by their own leader. And Leader McConnell knows this. And beyond that, McCarthy is on shaky ground himself, and he needs to be able to show that he has the power to go toe-to-toe with the president. So for those reasons and several others, this is going to be a deal, if it does get cut, that is cut at the end of the day between President Biden and the House Speaker.
And, Scott, quickly before we go, this hearing tomorrow clearly appears to be designed to accomplish one goal from the Democratic perspective: increase the political heat on Republicans for things that they want to cut in the future. Is that what this is about?
Both sides are desperately grasping around for some piece of leverage. Hearings, press conferences, we'll see a bunch of those. But there's no indication either side has amassed an effective or breakthrough amount of leverage. And it's no indication that's going to change in the next 28 days.
Scott MacFarlane and Nancy Cordes, thank you.